Alrighty, boys and girls. Are you tired of not getting your way in combat? Are the enemies not doing what you want them to do? Will your GM not let you take leadership, but you still want to boss around NPCs? Well, have I the min-maxing for fun and profit for you? I will say, at the beginning of this video, 110%, this has been the most difficult min-maxing for fun and profit I have ever created, because the request from Miss Ellie Nielsen has been so open that, well, I could basically do whatever the heck I wanted. I think I probably had at least a dozen half-thought-out ideas before finally settling on what we have to build up a mounted spellcaster. And to do that, we're going to touch on a race, we're going to touch on a class that together are kind of, sort of, really broken together. And we're going to make sure it stays optimized and relevant in all modes of play, give you a couple of roleplay suggestions, because you will need them to run this. Why, yes, it's the Fey Sorcerer, who happens to have a pet, for more than just, a combat buddy, for value within the class. If you guys are liking what you're seeing, like and subscribe. Requests go in the comments. If you'd like to play Final Fantasy, that is in the description. Today, this episode of Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit was brought to you in part by AJ Parker. Thanks for your help, man. Now, I have a really long story to tell. Okay, so mounted spellcasting. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? For me, it was a druid. For a while, we looked at optimizing a druid on a horse. There's a couple archetypes that play into it. But that seemed to hit the nail on the head for me. It seemed too easy. We thought about building a necromancer for a while, and that seemed kind of the opposite. And frankly, the necromancer with the zombie horse really doesn't do anything optimized, just kind of a rule of cool thing. Except there's no rule, and it's just cool. From there, we thought about the psychic for a little while. From there, I thought about shocking grasp plus mounted combat. And that would have been the build. If I could spirited charge with shocking grasp for double damage, it's fun, but you can't, unfortunately. Also, that seemed too kind of boring, to be honest with you. Especially when you consider the wizard doing it probably just cast Phantom Steed, and there's your mount. Then, and honestly, I don't even remember how I stumbled upon this, but the notion of kiting someone across the battlefield, and I know, my early World of Warcraft age is showing again, seemed to be something that a caster could do, because a caster could do everything, but oftentimes does not, because things will be just as fast as the caster. Now, kiting, what that means is, imagine you, out in the hills, it's a lovely spring day, and you have a kite, and you're running, and the kite is essentially chasing you, right, as the string goes up into the sky, and it's the same idea here. How do we get them to chase us? Well, aside from the wolf fallacy, which, again, should be just as easy as being a soft target to a wolf who wants to eat you, suggestion seems like a really good way to pull this off. Any of the compulsion spells that cause somebody to do what they didn't want to do, could get this job done. And again, if you're mounted on something while you're casting, and something as innocuous in combat, and credit to Lucia for this one, because I couldn't think of anything to say, and then she just kind of spat it out. A simple "come and get me" is probably all you need to cast at humanoid targets to get them to ignore the barbarian in their face and turn and chase after you. You mounted have all the speed to just stay out of the way, don't let them touch you until they can be dealt with. In the big ol' optimized party build, and follow this card right up here if you don't know what that means, we are definitely the control caster. We don't look the same. Well, we do, because we're an enchanter, and one of the best spells in the game falls in our school, and so we have huge buffs to it, so we can certainly do that. But in the same way, this is kind of more of a toying with them sort of strategy that has out-of-combat roleplay involved in it as well. So, down to it, our race, if you hadn't guessed, and yes, this picture will look human, they have a human form, note those purple eyes, is a kitsune. In addition to alternate race trait aside, a kitsune feeding right into what we want with our charisma bonus. They got both a favored class ability and a race trait that feeds right into this. The kitsune adds +1 to the DC of any saving throws against enchantment spells they cast. If a kitsune has a charisma score of 11 or higher, they can cast Dancing Lights thrice a day, but oh well. Unless you need lights that also dance. But anywho, the Sorcerer favored class bonus adds a further plus 1/4 to the DC of those spells, so feed your favored class option every level. That's a plus 5 by level 20. As for our class, today we're building a Sorcerer. But my friends, it's not just any Sorcerer. It's a cross-blooded Sorcerer. The cross-blooded Sorcerer does exactly what you would think it would do. At level 1, you have 2 different bloodlines. You get the bonus class skills from both. You select your bonus spells from either bloodline. You get your bonus feats from both bloodlines, choosing from one table made from 2. But namely, you get the bloodline arcana of both. Yes, we have 1 fewer spell known and a -2 penalty on will saves, but with enough runestones of power, the spontaneous-based Pearl of Power to get extra spells at high-level play, especially being kind of single-focused into our charisma, that doesn't hurt us that badly. The -2 on the will save is a little rough, but will's our best save. Don't ignore your wisdom. And eventually we'll have some feats and things to go around that. Anyway, as we said, charisma's the number 1 here. That is your casting stat, that is your save DCs, that's how we're going to function. Probably don't ignore your constitution, because a stray arrow means the end of you. Your dexterity will be necessary for ride checks for a little while until you have enough ranks that you just can't fail things. Wisdom is a prereq for a couple of feats, but strength and int, meh. Dump as low as necessary. Now, the 2 bloodlines we'll be choosing today are the Fey bloodline and the Infernal bloodline. The Fey bloodline is bread and butter for what we're trying to do, and I'm sure people have seen/played this one. It's gnarly. The bloodline arcana of the Fey bloodline says that whenever you cast a spell of the compulsion subschool, increase that spell's DC by 2. The bloodline arcana of the Infernal bloodline, whenever you cast a spell of the charm sub-school, increase that spell's DC by 2, means that, out the gate, level 1, the spells we're trying to cast for value are at plus 3. That's dumb. That's real good, and it only tracks up as you level. We won't talk about every single spell in the book today. There are many that work, but these 2 bloodlines help you get both sides of the enchantment power going. To clarify, this probably, maybe, depending on how you use it, may make you an evil character, or at least a morally questionable one. A compulsion puts a suggestion in someone's head. They feel like they should do a thing, and will do the thing, but are free to choose how that thing is done, whereas a charm is the true mind control, the removal of choice. You do this because I say so. Hence, on the Infernal bloodline, hence evil action. Now, as far as the rest of the bloodlines, take Entangle, then Hideous Laughter from the Fae, then take Suggestion, Charm Monster, Dominate Person from our Infernal, then grab Mislead back from the Fae, a Greater Teleport because why not at 15th, then Irresistible Dance, end with Meteor Swarm for, oomph. Anyway, let's talk about our feats. Now, some of these feats kind of sting. The build requires an animal companion, and we will be gaining our animal companion through feats. We are heavily taxed to do so. I think that's more than fair. Almost we were a Sylvan Sorcerer, but getting an animal companion does replace your bloodline arcana, so not this time. Anyway, at first level, it's Nature Soul. You want to see a feat tax? Sit down, kids. This one's mean. Nature Soul gives us a +2 on Knowledge, Nature, and Survival checks. If we have 10 or more ranks in either of those, it goes to +4 as a pseudo skill focus. At level 3, we'll grab Spell Focus, choosing Enchantment, of course, as our School of Magic, and we'll raise the DC by 1 more. That's all this build is about, nay, that's all min-maxing is about, is getting a DC and running it as high as you possibly can. The rich get richer in this build. At 5th level, we fulfill how the request was to function by taking the Animal Ally feat. This requires us to have Nature Soul, be a 4th level character, and we must not have an animal companion or mount, and this is where we gain our animal companion, as if we were a druid of our character level -3, or a 2nd level character right now. The feat notes that we must choose from a list, and if we later gain an animal companion through another source, we will not. The druid level stacks. Now, if your GM will allow you to take a different animal companion than what is listed here, do so. I don't think anything's greater than casting Hold Person, which happens to be one of those spells we're good at, it being Compulsion, while you're throat-slicing Warcat underneath you does its job. But really, for our purposes, a horse is fine. We're just looking to have something that will give us a faster move speed. And then at 7th level, we will take Boon Companion to catch it up. The abilities of your animal companion or familiar post-Boon Companion are calculated as though your class were 4 levels higher, to a maximum effective druid level equal to your character level. And now our horse is advancing at the same rate we are. Less of a liability in combat, super important. Anyway, now that we're done being super taxed, at 7th level we also receive our first bloodline feat. Someone's gonna have to go thank a devil for me because they're helping us out quite a bit here. Spell Penetration, staple feat for anybody who wants to cast a spell in this game. It's a +2 bonus on caster level checks to overcome SR, because nothing feels worse than casting and losing a spell slot, because you couldn't break SR. Thanks, Asmodeus! Or whatever devil my parents made a deal with, and my parents also made a deal with the Fae. The bloodline's weird. Anywho, at level 11, Greater Spell Penetration gives us a further +2. See, we're stacking more stuff on more stuff to have higher stuff. Easy peasy. Now, the rest of our feats are kinda weird. They are not what I thought I would take. Someone in the comments is going to complain that we don't have spell perfection. And that is because the nature of metamagic with a spontaneous caster means that we're turning our spells from standard actions to full round actions. Seeing as one of the spells we'll probably use a lot in our career, Dominate Person, requires us to use a move action to change orders. Wow, hey, that's synergy. Our horse can move for us. We didn't need that move action. Indicates to me that I don't want to use a full round action to cast my magic, and Quicken spell is coming via the Fey bloodline. Actually, fun fact, we get it here at 13th level alongside Totem Beast. Totem Beast requires us to have the Animal Companion class feature, which, via 3 feats, I imagine we do, basically, and a wisdom score of 13, but it allows us to take one animal aspect from the hunter. Our animal companion will gain the benefit of that aspect, treating its hit dice as its hunter level. This doesn't stack if we were a hunter. We're not a hunter, so it doesn't matter. And really, that's as versatile as you want to make it. The stag would give you an enhancement bonus to speed, but there's a magic item for that. Oh wait, also you can cast haste, so irrelevant. Really, this one kinda depends on your choice of animal companion. If you ended up with something like a war cat or a tiger, or you want to use the wolf in combat, bull will give us a buff to our strength. Really, sky's the limit, this one's your call. I figure though, especially because we're using a horse, there might be some things you want to shore up. Even if that's just its con. Now, I can't believe I'm taking these two, but we're gonna take them. Our last 2 feats before our capstone at 19th, which feels like a capstone, are Great Fortitude and Iron Will. Iron Will, though it comes very late, will help shore up that -2 that we got from being a cross-blooded sorcerer. Great Fortitude is a +2 to our fort saves, our worst save. To further that out, at 19th level, assuming we have 5 ranks in Knowledge Religion, we definitely could by now, and a Charisma of 13. If you didn't, go home. Leave your LGS. If you've made it to 19th level as a sorcerer with less than 13 Charisma, well, you're one of the bloodlines that lets you cast off your int or your whiz, aren't ya? We will take Divine Protection. Once per day is an immediate action. Before rolling a saving throw, you can add your Charisma on that saving throw. As usual, this does not stack if you're already doing it. If you possess Charmed Life, if you're a swashbuckler, other things happen, but whatever. We are not dipping Paladin in this build. We are also not dipping Scaled Fist. We will play Sorcerer from 1 to 20. Yes, I know. We definitely could take Magical Knack to keep our DC relevant from multi-classing out, but it's that Kitsune's favored class bonus that tells me that we are just Sorcerer 1 to 20 for the most value we can ever get. But I worry that we become a target. Once per day probably is the difference between life or death. Unless your GM hates you. In which case, well, bring them some Mountain Dew before next session. Really, charm that person. Anyway, also we'll take Improved Initiative at 19th level. Get the combat controlled, get the combat in your hands, you win. Now, we're going to talk about some spells. But first we have to address a couple of awkward cracks in the armor that this character has. First, we're going to be mounted for assumingly the whole time, though really, this is one of those characters that comes in with an animal companion that doesn't have that much of a problem leaving it in the stable. Again, you could just Phantom Steed somewhere if you really needed it, or fly or teleport. The synergy's good, but we're not dying to have it. Now, of course, you're going to need both your hands free to do some casting. The DC to guide them out with your knees is 5. Rules as written, you cannot fumble this. If your GM, and sometimes I do, says that all natural ones fumble, you might sometimes have to eventually try a fast mount or dismount at Ride DC 20. Again, eventually super easy to run, though Ride is not a class skill for us. With a high dex, we can still get there. If nothing else, grab a trait that gives you Ride as a class skill. Just don't ignore that part of the character sheet, or you could have some problems. Now, the second thing we must discuss is the concentration check. A d20 plus our caster level plus our charisma, which will happen on the vigorous or violent motion clauses of the concentration table. If you're riding on a mount that's moving, the concentration check is 10 plus spell level. If you're riding on a horse that's galloping, it's 15 plus spell level. Again, this is one of the reasons we're going to make sure our charisma is as high as possible so we don't choke on this. Eventually, it should be impossible to fail, given that before middle-age shenanigans, we're adding 6 at level 1. That's before magic items or anything. Also, the violent motion one probably comes up if you need to double move your horse, turn around, cast, but the vigorous motion may not. Cast your spell, then have the horse move. That's a little gamey, but this is a min-maxing video, and technically speaking, it makes sense for a smart character to, put the car in park before they turn around and say, hey, catch me if you can, and then, take off. Now, elephant in the room the second. Yes, this character has no metamagic feats aside from a quicken spell. Yes, there are many things in the game that are immune to mind-affecting effects. There are 2 ways around this. The first way around it is pretty easy. You are, in fact, one of the most powerful classes in the game. Several of the spells we want to use are coming from our bloodlines, and it's perfectly okay if your combat turn versus a bunch of banshees was to haste the party. You are still very relevant. If the paladin, not a paladin, if you're in a party with a paladin, this may get questionable. If the fighter in the party with his ghost touch weapon is able to do his job because of what you did casting a spell, that's why the tier 1 caster is what it is. You also have Entangle on your spell list, Grease, Black Tentacles, Create, Pit, the list goes on. It's perfectly okay if you're shut off to just pivot to these because they're good. Another reason I didn't want to take these feats is because, frankly, your mileage may vary with them. They're really good. They're necessary for our build. But if you never see an undead in your whole campaign, well, it didn't matter, did it? Coaxing Spell, Thranotic Spell, and Verdant Spell will allow your mind-affecting stuff to work against oozes and vermin, undead, and plants, respectively. Grab all 3 of these on metamagic rods, so as not to increase the casting time, you probably only need them a certain amount of times a day anyway, and you may not ever run into any of those. Constructs will still be an issue, but again, if you create Pit in front of the construct that's mindless and doesn't know anything but walk forward and it fell in, or again, hasting the party, you are still a very important member of the team. To again say nothing of if your GM is letting you ride the tiger. You can feel its heart, but you know it's gonna throat slicer people to death. Thank you, Dio. These items ride right alongside the big 6, and don't neglect your mount as well. A mount that is neglected is a mount that is a weakness to the party, and if you get your horse shot out from under you, when a suggestion of, hey, attack me instead, means that someone draws a ranged weapon you were not aware of, was a bad choice, and it leaves you vulnerable. Now, speaking of those spells, let's talk about them. I am more than happy to say that this is the first time in my entire pathfinding career that I have ever sorted spells by school. Yeah, I cast Greatsword. You guys know this. We're not going to talk about every spell involved here. We will highlight the staples. We will highlight the spells that have fun synergy. We'll start with a cantrip. Yes, this cantrip falls off eventually, but Daze is a compulsion. A humanoid creature with 4 or less hit dice that fails a will save takes no actions. Yes, it won't make somebody flat-footed, but you can shut off the action economy versus a single thing. And this is a cantrip, so you can do it, in theory, as many times as you want. Is it as good as some things? No, but it's decent here. Now, for level 1, to talk about the one that everyone takes, it's Sleep, which is a compulsion spell. It takes a round to cast, but 4 hit dice of creatures, become throat sliceable, become sneak attackable, become coup de graceable, if nothing else, are removed from the action economy, removed from the combat. It's 4 hit dice worth of attacks that aren't coming at the fighter. Next up for our first level spell slots, it's Bungle, a compulsion that grants a -20 penalty on the target's next attack roll or check that requires a d20 roll. Is super mean. It caps out at 10 hit dice. But if there's another caster in the party, like the witch who's going to misfortune someone, Bungle makes that all the easier and makes it nigh 100% positive that when you need a spell to stick, it'll stick. Your swashbuckler friends love this too. The attack of opportunity comes, they've been bungled at a -20, almost certain to riposte. Beautiful. Charm Person at first level is more or less what we're looking at. This one, of course, being the maybe evil one as a charm effect, says that, a humanoid creature, and yes, Charm Fae at this spell level also exists, mileage may vary, regards you as a trusted friend and ally. If the creature is currently being threatened by or attacked by your allies, it gets a +5 on its save. Really, that just comes down to maybe let the Sorcerer cast before, combat starts. But a +5 that's negged out by now a -3 from our race and our bloodline makes that gigantic bonus considerably less so. Of course, this spell does not give you direct control, but the creature will perceive your words and actions in the most favorable way. Giving the subject orders means you must win an opposed charisma check. If the Sorcerer can't beat the bandit's charisma check, there's a problem. Of course, this spell will never make the bad guy do something suicidal or obviously harmful, but you can probably convince them that something dangerous is worth doing. If anything you or your allies do causes this guy harm, it's broken. You have to speak the language, put ranks in linguistics, know what you need to take, basically. But at low-level play, this is, hey, this fight's not worth it. Will you please go home? With a duration of 1 hour per level, that might as well be a coup de grace. They have been removed from the battlefield, assuming the opposed charisma check works and the fighter doesn't get all gung-ho and, attack of opportunities when that guy just calmly walks away. And if he does, maybe that's all you needed to get that last bit of damage in. Out of combat, of course, this spell has almost limitless possibilities, which makes you also the party face. This is a great example, again, of how to kill without combat. Charm Person someone to go to a certain place where you've set up an ambush and, that giant dungeon with a big fight at the end, dealt with. 2 spells coming down at level 2, again, one that many would consider a staple, one that's flavorful for the build. Hideous Laughter, at 1 round per level, causes the opponent to collapse into gales of manic laughter, falling prone, taking no actions. It gets to save every round, but your saves are humongous, and that save was a full round action. Yes, casting this on a magical beast or an aberration or something like that will tack a +4, but again, remember that +4 only makes it kind of fair for them, given how much we're investing into our own enchantment ability. Now, maybe don't cast this one on the aberration, unless you really want to. I don't know what you're trying to do, but Unnatural Lust, a mind-affecting emotion-based compulsion, will fill your target at rounds per level with lust and desire for a single creature or object as designated by you. That creature or object must be within the spell's range and perceivable. The target is filled with the compulsion to rush the subject of its lust and passionately kiss or caress it on its next turn, taking no other actions. If the target would not normally have feelings like that towards the creature or object, there's a +4. And yes, that kind of brings the sexual orientation conversation up at your games. Session zeros are important, but the idea here is you cast this on someone, you are the target, they chase you, your horse is faster. Rounds per level, someone's taken out of the combat. They don't get a save every round. And for that round, they've run off. And also it causes formations to be broken up. It moves, if you strategically move your horse around, an archer closer to the marshals, a wizard closer to the marshals, a barbarian away from the marshals and into your entangle, which, remember, is on your spell list, Fey Sorcerer. No language about if this would put them in danger, they get a buff. There's nothing saying you can't kite people into your own entangle with this. Level 3 really opens it up for us. Got 4 of them here. First up, Deep Slumber, of course. Same idea, same casting time, but 10 hit dice worth of creatures. Can bring people out of the combat immediately. can make people coup de grace immediately. It's disgusting. Battlefield control is the best kind of magic, and we're really good at it. Hold person, same idea. We've talked on this channel a lot about hold person throat slicer, and our character is built to cast this spell, this enchantment, compulsion, mind-affecting thing. Throw it at someone. They're down for rounds per level pending saves. You could drown someone. You could make a flying thing fall. More importantly, you set up a coup de grace, which, man, even if you took a horse and that horse has throat slicer, kicking someone in the throat and getting a free crit may be more than enough to, take somebody off the initiative, move the action economy count down, and just keep doing this over and over and over and over again till bad guys are gone. Now, if you're having some problems sticking these spells, and Quicken Spell is a metamagic feat we are taking for a reason, Pugwampy's Grace is a compulsion that, if the target fails its will save, with the grace of one of the most iconic, if you know how to optimize, monsters in this game, at rounds per level, they're rolling with disadvantage, rolling 2 d20s whenever a d20 must be rolled, and using the lower of the two results. This spell has no effect on animals, gremlins, or gnolls. It's negated as long as somebody has a luck bonus on them. So, like a luck stone or divine favor, don't target the war priest. But the duration is not impacted by this, so if the luck bonus goes away first, Eventually, we're going to talk about the Witch on this channel. The Witch is the most powerful arcane caster in this game, possibly the most powerful class. This is why. The Witch does it with misfortune, we do it with this spell. Rolling 2 d20s and being forced to take the lower skews probability in your favor. They will never crit again, and if they did, they got obscenely lucky. Seriously, it's a 1 in 400 chance to roll a 20 twice. Finally, at this level, and we get this as a bonus spell, Suggestion influences the actions of a target, suggesting a course of action, limited to a sentence or two, worded in such a manner as to make the activity reasonable. Obviously, harmful acts are auto-negated. The suggested course of activity continues for the entire duration. If it can be completed in a shorter time, that's hours per level or until completed. The spell ends when the target does what it was supposed to do. You can also specify conditions that will trigger a special activity during the condition. So like an if-then statement, mind. And reasonable suggestions can actually cause the save to be made with a penalty. Now, okay, the GM is going to know you're optimized to do this. The barbarian doesn't. Come and get me, as you appear as a squishy little human or fox thing on a horse when the barbarian is instead fighting, more difficult targets, or even something along the lines of like a well thought out curse in the barbarian's language prior, or just like obviously making you the easier target, will make the barbarian probably have that neg on the save, and if they fail, the horse causes you to outrun this at hours per level. This could save your marshals' lives in the same way that a cure spell could. Okay, well, the cure spell puts hit points back on and not really the same, but you get the idea, right? It's chasing you. It's not harming anybody. If you see it carrying a bow or something, maybe like, you should drive that axe through my chest, is instead the suggestion, and it can just never catch up with you. But of course, the raging angry barbarian is going to try. At 4th level, Charm Monster, of course, Charm Person, but hits all the things, super relevant, and Confusion become our next, bit of amazingness. There's a bit of snafu on Confusion. Targeting all creatures in a 15-foot radius burst might hit your horse, but the fast mount or dismount DC by now is probably something you can pull off. Just don't be close to your horse when this happens, and throw down battlefield craziness. Confusion causes targets to be unable to determine their actions, and they have to roll percentage dice every turn to determine what they do. A 1 to 25 means they get their turn. 26 to 50 means they're babbling. 51 to 75 is a d8 of damage plus strength modifier to yourself, as 76 to 100 is attack nearest creature. Right, so walk in, you're charisma-based, have ranks in diplomacy, have ranks in bluff. Convince folks you're changing sides. Pop Confusion. Get all of the bandits or barbarians, or, well, we're higher level at this point, giants, say, to start attacking each other, and then just run out, get on your horse, get out of there, use the horse's speed to your advantage, and then, after the encounter has softened itself up a little bit, you and the marshals will come back to finish things up. 5th level gives us access to Mass Charm Person, which means we'll be affecting creatures whose combined hit dice don't exceed twice our level. Or, get everyone to just go home. Or if you'd rather them kill each other, dominate person at 5th level will allow you to, for days per level, though it takes a round to cast, control the actions of any humanoid creature through a telepathic link. This requires you to share language with a person, and this really does hit a humanoid. But again, that's just a matter of foresight. Get the languages, ranks and linguistics, you should be fine. But if you don't speak their language, you get basic commands, which is really all you needed, probably, most of the time. Out of combat, of course, there's a lot more stuff you can do with these spells. In combat, just saying, fight, hurt friend, something like that, probably something you can pull off. Once you've given that command out, the creature will continue to carry out that command to the exclusion of everything else, unless it needs to sleep or eat. By concentrating fully on this spell, you can get full sensory input from what you've charmed in case it goes super far away or you're doing this for RP purposes. Changing the dominated creature's orders is a move action, but we're on a horse, so we don't care about our move action. The horse will use the move action for us. If your subject is taking actions against its nature, it gets a +2 bonus on the save. Hilariously laughable, we're really good at this. Obviously, self-destructive orders will not be carried out, but as long as you stay on the same plane, the bandits are killing each other. And then when you show up to clean up the rabble, Hold Monster, the upgraded Hold Person, can hit any living creature that fails its will save. A lot of the combats for this character are probably dealt with before the character got to the combat. That makes it even scarier. And easier on the marshals. You're earning experience for them. And oh, by the way, GMs, the marshals still get experience if the enchanter goes in and solves all their problems without them. It's a party-based game, and there will be something to clean up after. Unless all of the bandits get really lucky for us, unlucky for them, and crit everyone to death in their house. But anyway, moving forward. Mind Fog. Fog spreads out in a 20 by 20, hangs out for 30 minutes. Creatures caught in the Mind Fog, pending will saves, take a -10 on wisdom checks and will saves. A creature that successfully saves is not affected and doesn't need to make any other saves after, as long as a creature remains in that fog. And for 2d6 rounds after the spell is a standard action, if somebody with less than 10 hit dice gets affected by this, then you bungle them, it's a -30. A -10 is probably enough to cause the failure, but if you really need to just drive that in, well, there you go. It's doable. Mind Fog giving everyone a -10 on their wisdom, then a mass charm person to get them to go home and rethink their life. You probably ended the encounter really fast, and if you didn't, well, start hold personing. The marshals will take care of the rest. One more at 5th level. Contagious Suggestion. It functions as per suggestion, except the target is also compelled to communicate your suggestion to another creature, which forces the target to attempt to save as if it were the initial target. The second target can spread the suggestion to a third, affecting a total number of hit dice equal to your caster level. Hey guys, this fight's not worth our time. We should go. Or, if it's really bad for them, guys, this is too much for us. We have to run. Holds us up until 6th level when we have Mass Suggestion, which targets one creature per level, no two of which can be more than 30 feet apart. It's disgusting. At level 7, Mass Hold Person looks really good, but we might not be fighting humanoids at this point. Though, it stands to reason there are high-level giants and things. Might look real good in Rise of the Rune Lords, actually. But Waves of Ecstasy, in a 30-foot cone, stuns things for a round and staggers them for rounds per level. For one round, they can't do anything. For the bunch of rounds after, they're only taking move actions. Or single standard actions. But not both. Does that thing you're fighting have a million natural attacks? Oh, never mind. We don't care. Because now it's only attacking you with one of them. To say nothing of 2-weapon fighting rogues, which you might just turn on each other for hilariousness. To say nothing of dragons. This is another spell that can help tip the action economy in your favor. Get a Waves of Ecstasy off, then start single eliminating hold persons, using your charm spells to get things to run away. You kind of play it by ear with this build, which makes it really fun. Mass Charm Monster at level 8, of course, has a lot of power to it. So too, Irresistible Dance, which you have as a bonus spell, so why not? Sure, seems fun. Though I think I'd rather just hold person something out. But it does remove people from combats, gives them huge penalties on reflex saves and armor class, and they provoke each round from dancing. Demand, which functions like sending, which gives you a cell phone that contains suggestions on it. If that demand is received, even if the subject's intelligence score is as low as 1, they'll do what you wanted, as long as that message is 25 words or less. Heck 'em, wreck 'em, Solve the battle before you even get there. I love it. Dominate monster and mass hold monster are probably more than enough at level 9. You know, locking down as many things as you can for coup de grace and making new best friends forever seem like very powerful capstones to me. And yeah, that's how this character works. At low level play, you're basically just kiting things around the board, taking advantage of a move action to concentrate on stuff, knowing that your DCs are fine, because you have ranks in ride and the concentration DC is minor at best. This character, more likely than not, probably sets a lot of encounters on its head. GMs, be prepared. You've lost agency over your mobs. What do you guys think? Have we played enchanters before? Have we played Kitsune enchanters before? And what are your favorite in or out of combat suggestions to place on your opponents? Let me know in the comments, and thank you guys, as always, so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more sweet Pathfinder 1st and 2nd edition content. Next week it's 2nd edition once again. We're building up something in the playtest. But what exactly? What do you guys think? Throw it in the comments. Give me some ideas. I'll see you then.